The Galactic Confederation had kept peace across 12,000 star systems for over 40,000 years. Their success came from one simple rule: some worlds were too dangerous to allow into civilized space. They called these worlds Class 13. These were planets where gravity crushed bones, where the air burned lungs, where every living thing evolved to kill or be killed. The founders of the Confederation had decided long ago that any thinking species born on such worlds would be too violent, too wild, and too dangerous to ever join galactic society. For 40,000 years, they had found 17 Class 13 worlds. Each one was surrounded by warning beacons and watched from orbit. The beings living on these worlds were never contacted. 3 of these worlds eventually destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. The others remained alone, never knowing that the stars were watching them. Then the survey ship Endless Horizon found Earth. Commander stood in the scanning room and stared at the data on his screen. He was tall and thin, with skin so clear you could see the blue blood moving through his body. He had served the Confederation for 300 years, and he had never seen readings like these. "This cannot be right," he said to his science officer. Was a small being with 4 arms that never stopped moving as she checked and rechecked the numbers. "I have tested the readings 7 times, Commander. The planet they call Earth scores 13.7 on the danger scale. That is the highest number ever recorded." Looked at the planet floating in the holographic display. It looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds, but the data told a different story. The gravity was strong enough to break the bones of most galactic species. The planet tilted on its axis, creating wild changes in temperature throughout the year. A large moon pulled at the oceans, creating waves that could swallow cities. The land was filled with predators of every size. Even the smallest life forms, things too tiny to see, waged constant war against larger creatures. And somehow, intelligent beings had evolved there. "Tell me about these humans," said. Pulled up more data. "They are remarkable, Commander. They breathe a gas that is poisonous to most species. They drink a liquid that would dissolve the organs of many beings. They eat plants and animals that would be classified as toxic on most worlds. Their bodies contain billions of tiny organisms that would kill them if their defense systems ever stopped working. And they are intelligent. Very much so. They have built cities all over their world. They have sent machines to explore other planets in their system. They have even walked on their moon." Paused. "Commander, based on their current progress, they will discover faster-than-light travel within 200 years. Felt cold. 200 years was nothing in galactic terms, a single heartbeat. "We must tell the High Council," he said. The journey to Prime took 3 weeks. The High Council met in a great chamber built inside an artificial moon. 12 beings sat in a circle, representing the oldest and most powerful species in the Confederation. They all stared at the holographic image of Earth rotating slowly before them. High Arbiter spoke first. He was ancient, his rocky body covered in cracks and scars from 3,000 years of service. "The law is clear. Class 13 worlds must be quarantined. No contact, no exceptions." "But High Arbiter," said Delegate, a snake-like being whose body coiled around her speaking platform, "the humans are different. They search for signals from space. They send messages into the darkness. They know something is out there. We cannot hide from them forever." "Then we destroy them," said War Minister. He was massive, covered in thick armor plates that his species had evolved on their own dangerous world. "We have done it before when quarantine failed. Better to end them now than to face what they might become." Spoke from her place at the witness platform. "You are talking about killing 18 billion beings. That would be the largest killing in Confederation history." "I am talking about survival," replied. "Look at the data. Humans are impossible. They eat poison for fun. They keep predators in their homes as companions. They heal from injuries that would kill any other species. They fight wars against each other with weapons that could crack planets, and yet they also show kindness and sacrifice that makes no sense. They are chaos made flesh. And yet they have not destroyed themselves, said Delegate, an old being whose skin glowed with changing colors as he thought. They have had nuclear weapons for over a century. They used them only twice, and then created rules to stop themselves from using them again. Does this not show wisdom? The argument went on for 7 days. Old friendships were tested. Alliances broke and reformed. The Confederation had not faced such a difficult choice in living memory. On the 8th day, High Arbiter called for silence. "We cannot agree," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Some of you want quarantine, some want destruction, some want contact. None of you will change your minds." He paused. "So I will use the protocol of exception." Whispers filled the room. The protocol of exception had been used only twice in 40,000 years. "We will contact humanity," continued. "We will offer them a chance to join the Confederation, but they will be watched. They will be tested. If they show that they cannot be trusted, if they prove that their violent nature makes them incompatible with galactic peace, we will act without mercy." He looked around the circle. "Is this acceptable?" The vote was close, 7 in favor, 5 against, but it was enough. Earth would become the exception. In the weeks that followed, was chosen to lead the contact mission. He spent many nights studying the humans, trying to understand them. He watched their history, filled with wars and cruelty that confirmed warnings. But he also saw something else. He saw humans risking their lives for strangers. He saw them building hospitals and schools. He saw them reaching toward the stars with hope instead of fear. He did not know what to make of them. On the night before his ship departed for Earth, found him standing alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. "I have met many species in my years of service. I have seen wonders and horrors beyond counting, but I have never met beings like these humans. Everything about them should be impossible, and yet they exist." "Perhaps that is the point," said. "Perhaps the universe is telling us that our rules are not as certain as we believed. Consider this. Or perhaps the universe is playing a cruel joke, and we are about to become the victims." He turned away from the stars and walked toward his ship. In 7 days, he would meet humanity face to face. He would look into their eyes and try to decide if they were the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, or something else entirely. He hoped he would choose wisely. The fate of 18 billion beings depended on it. The message appeared on every screen on Earth at the same moment. Every television, every phone, every computer displayed the same image. A being that was clearly not human looked out at them and spoke in a voice that somehow translated into every language at once. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Confederation. We have watched your world for some time. Now we invite you to meet us. Our representatives will arrive at the following location in 7 of your days. We come in peace, but we come with questions. Your answers will decide your future among the stars." The location was an empty stretch of desert in Nevada, far from cities but easy enough to reach. The world went crazy. Some people celebrated in the streets. Others hid in their homes and prayed. Religious leaders argued about what this meant for their beliefs. Governments tried to work together while also trying to gain advantage over each other. The stock markets crashed, then recovered when people realized that money might not matter much anymore. 7 days later, a ship came down from the sky. It was beautiful, almost like a living thing, and it landed on the desert floor without making a sound. 12 humans waited to greet it. They had been chosen through rushed meetings and arguments, representing the major countries and regions of Earth. Among them was Dr. Lisa, a scientist who had spent her whole career preparing for a moment she never truly expected to see. The ship's door opened. 3 beings stepped out. The first was Commander, his blue blood visible through his clear skin. The second was a diplomat named Yeel, whose species could smell emotions through chemicals in the air. The third was a security officer named Brandt, who stood 4 meters tall and was covered in natural armor. He was one of the most physically powerful beings in all of Confederation space. The humans did not step back. They did not run. They stood their ground and waited. Yeel noticed this immediately. She could smell their fear, could detect the fast beating of their hearts, but they did not retreat. They did not show weakness, just as the reports had said. "We welcome you to Earth," said Secretary General Martinez, the leader of the human group. "We have many questions." "As do we," replied. "Perhaps we should start with the most basic one. Why do you exist?" The humans looked confused, so explained. "Your world is extremely hostile. According to our science, intelligent life should never have evolved here. Intelligence needs stability, safety, and time to develop. Earth has none of these things. Yet here you are. We want to understand how this is possible." Dr. Lisa stepped forward. "May I answer?" Gestured for her to continue. "We evolved because of the hostility, not despite it," Lisa said. "Every challenge you mention, the predators, the changing climate, the diseases, each one forced us to adapt or die. Our ancestors who could not survive these challenges died. Those who survived passed their strength to their children. We are not the gentle product of a kind world. We are the hardened survivors of a world that tried to kill us every single day. And we are still standing." Yeel detected something strange in the human's body chemistry. It took her a moment to identify it. Pride, not arrogance, but deep, fierce pride. The talks that followed went on for months. The Confederation built a permanent embassy on Earth. Small groups of humans were allowed to visit other worlds, traveling on ships modified to handle their strange biology. What the humans found both amazed and troubled them. The galaxy was peaceful, yes, but it was a peace built on careful control and strict rules. Species that could not control their violent urges were contained or destroyed. Dangerous worlds were quarantined. The Confederation had achieved stability by removing anything unstable. It had worked for 40,000 years. But it had also made the galaxy careful, afraid, unwilling to take risks. One evening, Yeel sat across from Doctor in the embassy's main hall. Lisa had asked for a private meeting, and Yeel had agreed, curious about what she would learn. "Your people destroyed Lisa said quietly, "an entire species, billions of beings, because they were too aggressive. They had attacked 3 member worlds without warning," Yeel explained. "They refused all attempts at peace. The decision was difficult, but it was necessary. And now you are watching us, waiting to see if we give you a reason to do the same thing." Yeel's species found lying physically painful, so she did not try. "Yes, that is true." Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "Then let me tell you something about humans. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars, mass killings, cruelties that I will not describe because they would give you nightmares. By your standards, you should have destroyed us long ago. This does not make me feel better about the situation. I am not finished. We have also done wonderful things. We have risked our lives for people we never met. We have built places of healing and learning. We have created systems of cooperation that cover our entire world. We have looked at our worst behavior and chosen again and again to be better, not because we lack the ability for violence, but because we have the power to choose. That is what makes us different from that is what makes us worth saving." Yeel studied the human for a long time. She could smell many emotions: fear, determination, hope, and that strange pride again, all mixed together in a way she had never encountered before. "I believe you," Yeel said at last, "but I am not the one you need to convince." "I know," Lisa replied. "We need to convince the entire galaxy, and we will, one day at a time, one choice at a time. That is how humans have always done things. That is how we survived Earth. That is how we will survive the stars." She stood up and offered Yil her hand, a human gesture of friendship that the diplomat had learned about. "Give us a chance," Lisa said. "That is all we ask. A chance to prove that we are more than the sum of our fears. A chance to show that the most dangerous world in the galaxy can produce beings capable of peace." Yil took her hand. The human skin was warm, her grip firm but not threatening. "I will speak to the council," Yil said. "I will tell them what I have learned here. But you must understand that 40,000 years of fear does not disappear overnight." "Understood," Lisa said. "We have time. Patience is another skill we learned on our world. When you have survived ice ages and plagues and asteroids, you learn to think in long terms." She smiled then, and Yil found herself smiling back, though her species showed happiness in a different way. Perhaps, Yil thought, the humans were right. Perhaps fear could be overcome. Perhaps the galaxy had room for beings forged in fire instead of safety. Perhaps the exception could prove the rule wrong. Only time would tell. The Confederation's acceptance of humanity came with conditions. Earth would receive limited access to galactic technology and trade. Humans could build colonies in a small section of space set aside for them, but they would be watched constantly. Every action would be studied for signs of the violence the Council feared. For 20 years, everything went well. Humans proved to be eager traders and skilled workers. Their creativity made them valuable partners across the galaxy. They built 12 colonies, each one carefully following Confederation rules. Problems happened sometimes because humans were still humans, but nothing crossed the line. Then they arrived. They were not part of the Confederation. They lived in the dark spaces between civilized stars, moving from system to system, taking what they wanted. They had been a problem for thousands of years, never strong enough to threaten the Confederation directly but too spread out to destroy completely. They had also never met humans before. The first attack came against a colony called New Haven on a planet the settlers had named Hope. They arrived with a large fleet, expecting an easy victory. They had conquered dozens of young colonies throughout their history. This would be no different. They were wrong. The colony's defense force was small. Only 300 trained soldiers protected 50,000 civilians. They had standard Confederation weapons, meant for defense rather than attack. Every calculation said they should be destroyed within hours. The fighting lasted 9 days. Commander Jake Santos had been a Marine on Earth before volunteering for colony duty. He organized the defense with a creativity they had never seen before. He used the land against them. He used the weather against them. He even used the local animals against them. When normal tactics stopped working, he made up new ones. When his soldiers fell, ordinary people picked up their weapons and kept fighting. When they ran low on ammunition, they built more. On the 9th day, Confederation rescue ships arrived to find the running away. Their invasion force had lost 60% of its fighters. The humans had lost 78 soldiers and 212 civilians. They had killed over 4,000 while being outnumbered by a huge margin. The Confederation was worried. "This is exactly what we feared," War Minister said at the Emergency Council meeting. "Humans are dangerous. They fight with a fury that makes no sense. If they can do this to what might they do to us?" "They defended their homes," Delegate argued. "This is not aggression. This is survival. The difference does not matter. The result is the same. We are looking at a species capable of violence that could destroy galactic peace." "May I speak?" The voice came from the witness area, where a group of humans had been allowed to watch. Ambassador Nancy stood up. She was old, with gray hair and a face lined by decades of hard work in diplomacy. "Please," said High Arbiter, who had replaced after his death, "we would like to hear your perspective." "You are right to be worried about us," Nancy said. "We are dangerous. We have always been dangerous. But you are missing the point of what happened at New Haven." "Then explain it to us." Those 300 soldiers did not fight because they wanted to kill. They fought because 50,000 people were depending on them. Mothers, fathers, children, friends. The civilians who picked up weapons did not do it because they enjoyed violence. They did it because the people they loved were in danger. Nancy paused to let her words sink in. Every act of violence on New Haven was an act of love. That is who we are. We will burn entire worlds to protect the people we care about. But we do not want to burn anything. We want to build. We want to grow. We want to explore. Violence is our last choice, not our first. If you give us the chance, we will prove this. The council talked for 3 days. They argued and debated and considered every option. In the end, they voted to continue the experiment with humanity. But they increased the watching. Jake Santos became a hero on Earth and in the colonies. He did not enjoy the fame. When reporters asked him about the battle, he always gave the same answer. I did not do anything special. I just refused to let my people die. Any human would have done the same. This simple statement caused more discussion in the council than any speech by any ambassador. Any human would have done the same. What did it mean for a species to consider such fierce defense so normal that it was not worth celebrating? In the years after New Haven, the humans continued to surprise the galaxy. They took on problems that other species considered impossible. They volunteered for dangerous jobs that others refused. They formed friendships across species lines that had never been crossed before. And they kept talking about the future. This puzzled the Confederation most of all. Most galactic species had achieved their goals long ago. They maintained what they had built. They protected their borders. They avoided risk. Humans never stopped pushing forward. They always wanted more knowledge, more exploration, more connection with the beings around them. Why do you never rest? A Confederation diplomat asked Lisa during a conference on relations. Lisa had become one of humanity's most important voices in galactic affairs. She thought about the question for a moment. Because rest means death on our world. The species that stopped adapting, stopped reaching, stopped trying, those species went extinct. We carry that lesson in our bones. We cannot help ourselves. We must always be moving, always be growing, always be reaching for the next horizon. But you have achieved safety now. You are protected by the Confederation. Why not simply enjoy what you have? Lisa smiled. Because safety is an illusion. We learned that on Earth. The ice comes, the volcanoes erupt, the asteroids fall. Nothing is ever truly safe. So we prepare, we build, we reach. Not because we are afraid, but because we know that the universe rewards those who dare, and we love to dare. The diplomat filed this conversation in his report. It joined thousands of similar reports from beings all across the galaxy who were trying to understand these strange creatures from the called Earth. Nobody had figured them out yet. But many were starting to think that maybe understanding was not the point. Maybe the point was simply to watch and learn as humanity showed the galaxy what beings forged in fire could become when given the chance to shine. The test was not over, but so far humanity was passing. And the galaxy was beginning to wonder if perhaps they had been testing the wrong things all along. 40 years after first contact, humanity had become an important part of galactic life. Human traders worked throughout Confederation space. Human scientists helped with research on 100 different worlds. Human diplomats had earned respect for solving problems that had frustrated other species for generations. And then the plague came. It started on the farming world of Minor, a planet that grew food for billions of beings across the galaxy. The disease was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It spread fast. It killed almost everyone it touched, and nothing in the Confederation's medical knowledge could stop it. Within weeks, millions were dead. Within months, the plague had spread to 17 worlds. The Confederation responded carefully, following their ancient procedures. They set up quarantines. They conducted research. They sent resources where they were needed. but the plague moved faster than their systems could handle. The death count kept rising. Then Dr. Carlos suggested something that shocked everyone. Carlos was a human doctor who had been working on Minor when the outbreak started. He had caught the disease and somehow survived, one of only a few beings to do so. Since then, he had spent every moment studying the plague, trying to understand it. His proposal went to the Confederation Science Council. They rejected it immediately. "You want to deliberately infect healthy people with the plague," chief scientist said, his voice filled with horror. "This is barbaric." "It is called," Carlos explained. "We give people a controlled, weak version of the disease under careful medical watch. This teaches their bodies to fight it without causing a full infection. Humans developed this technique centuries ago, before we even understood why it worked. It is how we defeated smallpox, one of the deadliest diseases in our history. By purposely spreading disease. By accepting a small risk to prevent a much larger disaster. The plague kills 97% of people who catch it naturally. My research shows that controlled exposure under medical care would reduce that to less than 4%. We could save billions of lives. Or you could kill billions more if the controlled exposure spreads beyond your control. That is possible, but doing nothing will definitely kill billions. You are choosing between a certain disaster and an uncertain risk." Carlos leaned forward in his seat. "On Earth, we learned long ago that sometimes you have to take chances." The Science Council refused his plan. The High Council refused his plan. Every official group in the Confederation refused to allow what they saw as deliberately infecting healthy people with a deadly disease. Carlos did it anyway. Working with a network of human doctors spread across the affected worlds, he began giving controlled exposures to volunteers. The first group included himself, his fellow doctors, and nearly 1,000 humans who had heard about the project and offered to participate. The death rate in the first group was 3.8%. 38 humans died to prove that the technique could work. The second group included non-human volunteers, species whose bodies were similar enough to humans that the technique could be adjusted for them. The death rate was 4.2%, higher than Carlos had hoped, but far lower than the alternative. By the time Confederation authorities moved to stop the unauthorized medical program, it had already saved over 200 million lives. The plague was under control within a year. Carlos was arrested and put on trial for breaking medical rules. The trial became one of the most important events in human galactic history. "You broke our laws," the prosecutor stated. "You put healthy beings at risk without proper permission. You treated the lives of volunteers as acceptable losses in your experiment. How is this different from the terrible things your species has done throughout its history?" Carlos stood in the defendant's area, exhausted but unbowed. He had not slept properly in months. He had watched colleagues die. He had held the hands of volunteers as they took their last breaths, and he had helped save 200 million lives. "It is different because they chose," he said. "Every single person who received a controlled exposure did so voluntarily. They knew the risks. They understood they might die. They chose to face possible death so that others might live." He paused. "That is not cruelty. That is sacrifice. It is what humans do when the situation demands it, and I would do it again." The trial lasted for 6 weeks. Witnesses from across the galaxy. Some demanded the harshest possible punishment. Others called Carlos a hero who should be celebrated, not punished. In the end, the court found him guilty of 17 violations of Confederation medical rules. They also found that his actions had prevented the deaths of an estimated 2.3 billion beings. His punishment was an official reprimand and 3 years of supervised medical work. The message was clear. The Confederation was learning to make exceptions. After the trial, Carlos returned to his work. He never sought fame or recognition. When people thanked him, he always pointed to the volunteers who had risked their lives, many of whom had died. "They are the heroes," he would say. "I just had an idea. They had the courage to make it real." Dr. Lisa, now older and serving as humanity's senior science advisor to the council, visited Carlos at his clinic one evening. "You changed everything," she told him. "The council is talking about rewriting their medical protocols. Other species are studying human risk-taking behaviors. You might have done more for human-galactic relations than all our diplomats combined." Carlos shrugged. He was checking supplies, preparing for the next day's patients. "I did what any doctor should do. I saved lives. The methods do not matter as much as the results." That is a very human way of thinking. "Is that bad?" Lisa smiled. "No, I think it might be exactly what the galaxy needs." She watched him work for a while. This quiet man who had broken ancient laws and saved billions of beings, and wanted nothing more than to help his patients. Perhaps, she thought, this was what the Confederation had been missing all along. Not safety, not careful procedures, not slow, steady progress that never risked anything. Perhaps what the galaxy needed was beings willing to bet everything on the chance of saving others. Beings who saw rules as guidelines rather than absolute laws. Beings who understood that sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. Beings like Carlos. Beings like humans. The exception was becoming something more than just a single case. It was becoming a new way of thinking, and the galaxy would never be the same. 100 years after first contact, the galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Human influence had spread far beyond the small section of space originally given to them. Human ways of thinking, their willingness to take risks, to try new things, to sacrifice for others, had been adopted by species all across the Confederation. The old methods of careful control and strict rules still existed, but they had been softened by something new. Hope. The Confederation had spent 40,000 years keeping peace through control. They had succeeded, but at a price. New ideas came slowly. Exploration had almost stopped. The great civilizations of the galaxy had found peace by accepting limits on what they could do. Humans did not accept limits. They pushed against every boundary. They asked uncomfortable questions. They failed badly and then got up and tried again. They deliberately infected people with deadly plagues and then changed galactic medicine forever. They fought impossible battles and won. They did things that no sensible species would ever attempt. And the galaxy started to wonder if maybe the sensible approach was not the only way. The final test came when the Confederation faced something they had always feared, a threat from outside that could not be controlled or contained. The beings called themselves the Architects, though that was just the closest translation of a concept most species could barely understand. They lived in the spaces between dimensions, in places where normal physics did not apply. And they had decided that the galaxy's current inhabitants were using space that could be put to better use. They did not try to talk. They did not give warnings. They simply started changing reality itself, and millions died in the first attack. The Confederation froze. Their rules had no instructions for threats this big. Their military forces, designed for small actions against minor enemies, were completely useless. Every prediction said the galaxy would be destroyed within 10 years. And then the humans started laughing. Not from madness or despair. Ambassador, great-granddaughter of Nancy and humanity's most important representative, actually laughed when she saw the threat report. "Finally," she said, "a challenge worth our attention." "You find this funny?" High Arbiter asked, confused by her reaction. "I find it clarifying. For 100 years you have watched us, wondering if we would turn out to be the monsters you feared. Now you will see what we really are." The human response to the Architect threat broke every rule in Confederation strategy. They split their forces instead of keeping them together. They attacked positions that seemed worthless. They sacrificed ships and crews in moves that looked like suicide. And they won. Not quickly, not easily. The war lasted for 7 years and cost billions of lives, human and others. But humanity had spent its entire existence fighting against impossible odds on a world that should have killed them. The architects were just another predator, just another ice age, just another plague to be survived. General Torres, commander of the human fleet at the final Battle of the Void, sent one last message before engaging the enemy. They think they understand us because they can count our ships and measure our weapons. They do not understand that those are not our real advantages. Our real advantage is that every single one of us grew up on a world that spent millions of years trying to kill us. We are not afraid of impossible odds. We are used to them. The battle lasted for 9 hours. Human losses were terrible. Over 80% of their ships were destroyed. But when the fighting ended, the architects had been pushed back beyond the dimensional barrier. And then something happened that had never occurred in all of galactic history. The architects asked to negotiate. The peace agreement that ended the war created new borders between dimensions and rules for future contact. More importantly, it showed something the Confederation had never believed possible. Humans could face a threat to all existence and respond with something other than destruction or surrender. At the victory celebration on Prime, High Arbiter made an announcement that would have been unthinkable a century earlier. When we first found humanity, we debated whether to destroy them or contain them. We saw their world, their history, their capacity for violence, and we were afraid. We created the exception because we could not agree on killing them, not because we believed they could join us successfully. He paused, looking out at the crowd of beings from 100 different species. We were wrong, not about the danger. Humans are exactly as dangerous as we feared, but we were wrong about what that danger meant. We saw it as a threat. We should have seen it as a gift. For 40,000 years, the Confederation achieved peace through limitation. We held ourselves back because we feared what we might become if we reached too far. Humanity has shown us another way. They have proven that danger and wisdom can exist together, that the same species capable of terrible destruction can also be capable of great salvation, that the universe rewards those who dare, even when daring seems like madness. The exception has become the rule. From this day forward, Class 13 worlds will no longer be automatically quarantined. Each will be judged on its own merits, with the understanding that the most dangerous places may produce the most remarkable beings. We were afraid of what humans might do to us. We never imagined what they might do for us, and for that, we are grateful. In the years that followed, 3 more Class 13 species were contacted and brought into galactic society. Each one brought its own challenges, its own gifts, its own unique way of seeing things, forged in the fire of a hostile world. But humans remained special. Not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they had been first. They had proven that the old fears were unfounded. They had shown that the galaxy was big enough for dangerous beings who chose to be good. On Earth, now a busy center of interstellar trade and culture, a simple monument stood in the Nevada desert where first contact had occurred. It carried no long speech, just 4 words that captured the heart of humanity's journey among the stars. We chose to hope. And the galaxy, against all its expectations, was glad they did.